Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Ear Hustling Podcast. I've got 4 out of 5 people here with me today, with the fifth joining us shortly. But in the meantime, just want to just say hello to everybody, and we're going to start with Soleil. Soleil, how are you today?
Hey, I'm really hot. It's like 116 degrees here in Las Vegas, so I'm barely surviving. Please send help.
Well, you know what? What I think we'll do when they say whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, you can keep that heat. I don't want it. I don't want it. But you look nice, cool, and relaxed. So we definitely appreciate you braving the elements today to come and join us. And the young fellow over there, what's going on, handsome Princeton?
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. That's very nice of you. But I'm doing great over here. Whoa, Patrick, just because you didn't get a compliment last week, don't be upset that I got a compliment this week. It just shows, some people stand out a little bit more. But I appreciate the compliment. I'm looking forward to the show today. I think it's gonna be a good one.
And that's my nephew. I'm still trying to get him to say God, Dad. So I'm trying to butter him up a little bit.
Well, which is it, your nephew or your godson?
Well, he can be both.
I'm confused. This
I
sounds like an Alabama relationship.
I want him to call me God Dad. He is my nephew, but I want him to call me God Dad.
Stop interrupting Eric. Let him get to introducing me, please.
Okay, sorry, my bad.
I'm sorry, my bad. It's too much attention not being focused on Patrick. Patrick was all pretty and stuff a couple of weeks ago with the fresh haircut.
Patrick was pretty.
Patrick was pretty.
Pretty Patrick.
Prince is handsome and I'm pretty. That's good.
You're pee-pee. Pretty Patrick. Pee-pee.
Hey, so you know what? Kind of rolls off. How's it going?
That's his new nickname.
Hey, pee-pee.
Pee-pee.
Well, listen, I've had worse nicknames than that. Thank you, Eric, and everybody else for still being my friends after all of this. I appreciate you guys. I'm here to add some flavor, I guess, to the show. Maybe I don't know.
No. You couldn't even say that right. No.
Flavor. He's a work in progress. He's a work in progress.
I am.
And Mr. James Montgomery, how goes things with you?
Man, everything's great, man. I'm loving Patrick's new nickname, PP with EHP. He's definitely got to get his own segment.
PP with EHP? Wow.
Yes. Yep. So, no, man, everything's great. Georgia was not as hot today, so that was lovely. And we didn't have rain for the first time in a couple of days. So all is good down here in Carroll County, Georgia.
Well, that is fantastic to hear. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a great show lined up today. So most people may or may not have heard about the Project 2025. Basically what that is, that's pretty much, I guess, a guide to... Well, you know what? I'm not even going to steal any thunder because I'm not 100% educated in it. So we're going to go ahead and leave that to some folks that are smarter than I am, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, which is probably my 4 co-hosts at bare minimum. But before we get into that, Patrick, my man, you did a post last week about the top 5 rivalries in the NFL, bro. I thought you knew sports. I thought you knew football.
Listen, it was something that I put together, with the help of Google and a lot of other facts. And here's the thing. Listen,
you cheated?
I looked at some Google facts about the rivalry history. See, I like history. I like legacy. I like rivalries that have something to them. Okay, if you will. Mm-hmm. So the only way that I'm going to get out of this unscathed is I'm not going to get out of it unscathed, so I might as well just get into it. All right. So the only one that I kind of cheated with is a little bit is number 5. Number 5, the Bills and the Chiefs. That's a relatively new rivalry. Mm-hmm. It is the rivalry that everybody wants to see still. Josh Allen is still the number one.
Hey, Patrick,
listen, this is my time. This is
my time.
You can't have a rivalry if you don't win.
Those are the rules.
Well, if the rules were fair in overtime, we would have. Anyways, okay, Eagles and Giants. You got to go to the NFC East very quickly. There's 2 teams. two teams in that division that have some serious history. Eagles fans just about hate everybody that are involved in anything with sports. So Eagles, Giants, I looked at their rivalry record. They've got a huge number of games that they played against each other. That's the fourth one. Browns and Steelers. I mean, come on. Who doesn't love a Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers game? You know, I mean, you got to love that.
Everybody.
And then, of course, you go back to the Eagles and the Cowboys. I mean, listen, two of probably the most hated teams around. Nobody likes the Cowboys unless you're my brother-in-laws, okay? And nobody likes the Eagles unless you're from Philadelphia. And then positively the most number one rivalry of all time, the greatest, oldest rivalry. And again, I don't know much about it because I'm not an NFC guy, but you got to go with Chicago Bears and Green Bay Packers. It's the most historic two franchises, the most times that these two teams have gone against each other. It's worth my respect.
Well,
I'm gonna give him a pass because he used giggle, but
Giggle?
yeah, but we're gonna debate that another time. But yeah, I don't know about that one, Pat. But kudos to
Whatever.
you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Who's doing the video next week?
That's me.
Can't wait to critique you.
Yep. Carry on, Eric. Carry on.
Go for it, buddy. Go for it.
Well, thank you very much. I would probably give that like a B+, but man, you know what? The oldest rivalry in the NFL, the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears, bro. What? Nothing. No mention of that. There wasn't an NFC North team anywhere in there.
That was
Isn't
my
that
number
that was
one
number
rivalry.
That was number
That was
one.
my number.
Let's rewind the film. He did say there are 4 people are smarter than him. I'm just saying that was your word.
I just proved it right there.
That was his number one, Eric. That was his number
buddy.
one rivalry.
Thanks for keeping up, buddy. Thanks for joining the show.
You know, I think we need to move on. And this day in history.
Okay, yeah, we'll move on to this day in history. So today's focus is the great Arthur Ashe. He was an American tennis player. Arthur Ashe was born July 10th in 1943 from Richmond, Virginia. So Arthur Ashe won 3 Grand Slam titles and 2 double titles during his career, and he was the first Black player that was selected to the U.S. Davis Cup. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the late Arthur Ashe for being a pioneer in the sport of tennis. Did I redeem myself?
Awesome. That's a good one. I like
Thank
it.
you.
Nice.
Thank you. I'm asking James because James always has like the sly smirk on his face.
No comment, sir. No
This
comment.
date in history, Eric only pays half of attention to his co-hosts.
Mm-hmm.
No comment.
Are we allowed to give those facts after February? No. Okay.
Wow.
Well, if Project 2025 gets implemented, we won't be able to.
That's a good segue. Let's get right.
Well,
let's
that
get
is a good segue. So what we're going to do is we have 2 gentlemen that are going to help us unwrap Project 25 to give us a little bit more insight than the average person knows. So we have Greg Hopkins and we have Randy Hopkins. Both of these fine gentlemen are from the state of Utah. They're brothers, and it kind of feels like a good old family fashion gathering because we have one individual who is a Democrat and the other individual who's a Republican. So, those were probably some spicy conversations between those two, but both of those are fine gentlemen, and I'm very happy to know the both of them. Gentlemen,
welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to be here.
So what we're going to do, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Greg, would you mind going first? Just give us a quick little intro so the crowd can
Sure.
get to know you.
First of all, Arthur Ashe was one of my heroes growing up. Randy and I grew up playing tennis, and Arthur Ashe won Wimbledon, his last major, in 1975, the year I graduated from high school. So it was a long time ago. But yeah, you can do the math, Patrick. So, but I'm glad you mentioned Arthur Ashe. He was a great one. I am, to put it fairly, I'm a former Republican. I'm no longer a Republican, but my roots are in Republican politics. I came up during the Reagan years, and worked for members of Congress during that period. I worked for the George H.W. Bush administration, Bush 41. And I ran several campaigns for the Senate and for governor, and was chief of staff for a senator from Utah. So I've been out of the political game for some time now, since really 2010. I haven't done anything in politics other than observe. So I'm just a guy on the street now with opinions.
So a long story short, you've forgotten more about politics than any of us will ever know.
Well, I don't know.
That's
we'll see.
Thank you, Greg. Randy?
Yeah, thank you. Hey, I got to tell you, throughout the years, Greg and I had many heated discussions at Sunday dinner at my mom's house. We'd go over to Sunday dinner at my mom's house, and we would talk politics, and sometimes they would get kind of heated. But here's what's interesting is Greg said he's a former Republican. As we've gotten older, a lot of our political views have come together now. And that's very interesting that that's happening. Now, I'm the older brother. I'll tell you how old I am, Patrick. I graduated from high school in 1970. Ooh. So I'm an old guy. But I worked for the state of Utah for 35 years with the Department of Workforce Services, and I administered most of the social service programs, unemployment insurance, food stamps, everything, stuff like that. And I saw the good that they did. I retired about 11 years ago from the state. And since then, I ran for Congress twice as a Democrat. And that's a hard thing to do in Utah. And now, currently, for the last 3 years, I've been working for Utah State University, not the University of Utah, but Utah State University, where I got the best job in the world. I get to go into jails and prisons and teach men how to be better fathers and better men. And it's a great job. Love it. It's really good.
All right. Thank you. And I personally can testify what a wonderful influence you are, Randy. Randy and I met coming up on 10 years ago when he spent a couple of years, he and his wife, over in Detroit. And the impact that they have had on my life has just been so instrumental. So I greatly appreciate everything that you've done for me. But with that being said, you're welcome. But with that being said, there won't be any layup questions. So what I want to do first, before we get into the Project 2025 conversation, a couple of weeks ago, there was the presidential debate between former President Donald Trump and current President Joe Biden. So Randy, I'm going to start with you. What was your impression of the debate, specifically how Joe was responding to like all of the questions?
I was disappointed. I was very disappointed. Listen, you know, the older you get, things happen and things change. And I believe, from what I observed, just watching Joe, I believe that he has a diminished mental capacity, and that scares me. I do not believe he has the mental acuity to last another 4 years in office. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm just saying what I observed. And all of us have probably seen older people. What happens? Listen, I'm 72. I'll be 70. Let's see. I'll be 73 this year. 72 or 73, Greg. 72 or 73.
You got to do the math.
I don't even remember.
You're going to be 73 years old.
73. I can tell you, I do not have the same brain. It doesn't operate the same as it does a 25-year-old man. And here's the thing that bothers me. I really, really want Joe Biden to step aside. I absolutely want him to. When people his defenders keep talking about, look at all of the wonderful things he's done as a president and during his career in politics. And I said, that's absolutely right. But I use this comparison talking about the NFL. What if you've got a quarterback who was the best quarterback in the whole NFL, took you to the playoffs and took you to the Super Bowl. The last game before the Super Bowl, he broke his arm, his throwing arm. Well, the coach is not going to put him into the Super Bowl because of all the wonderful things he got you there to the Super Bowl. But you know what? Things have changed. He can no longer operate as the quarterback. That's my feeling about Joe Biden. He does not have the same mental fitness that he did 4 years ago when he was elected, and he's done some wonderful things. Personally, I would like to see him step aside. I would like to see Kamala Harris become our presidential nominee. That's my feelings.
Okay. And wow, that was a lot to unpack. Thank you. Wasn't expecting that. Greg, your thoughts?
I agree with Randy is the short answer. You know, from a political point of view, that was a high-risk move by the Biden campaign to do that debate this early. Very high risk. I don't quite understand it. But, you know, that toothpaste is out of the tube and you cannot put it back in the tube. And my view is this race is over. Donald Trump is going to win, I think, in an electoral landslide, an electoral college landslide, if the president is not replaced as the Democratic nominee. And as Randy said, once you're diminished, and it doesn't get better. There's only downhill from now on, and he's not going to be able to recover from this. So now states that were not in play are in play. You know, it's not just the typical battleground states. There are other states in play. You know, so I just think that the Democrats have to override him, overrule him, overwhelmingly, come out and say, Joe, you have to step aside. And he's a hero. Look, he kept Donald Trump from serving a second term. So, you know, put him on Mount Rushmore, as far as I'm concerned. But he will give all that back if he stays on the ticket. So he has to move. And I think it has an air of inevitability now that he will be off the ticket very soon. And I agree that Kamala Harris is the best to prosecute the case against Donald Trump. And that's what has to happen. The spotlight has to shift from Biden to Trump. And if the spotlight shifts to Trump, Trump will lose.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that pivot, everybody, but the question was just on my mind. James, I believe that you have a question.
Yeah. Guys, for both Randy and Greg, like Eric said, Randy, what you said was a lot to unpack there. I agree with you. I agree with you, Greg. My concern at this point is, as late as we are in the campaign, is it too late for the Democrats to rebound and get Joe to step out of the race, get Kamala in? Is it too late for us to unify the party now at this point?
I'm going to have Greg answer that with his political background. What's your feelings on that, Greg?
I don't think it's too late. I don't think it's too late all the way up to the convention. The few percentage points of people who still need to be persuaded one way or the other, those folks don't really come into play until after Labor Day. And I think there's an opportunity to breathe new life into the Democratic Party and new energy into it. There's no energy behind Joe Biden anymore, and a lot of apathy. And I think that right up until the convention, if they do this right, they can come out of the convention united with a really strong candidate. And these polls that now show Donald Trump 6 or 7 points ahead, I think they will flip that fast, and it will become a horse race. And I really think the vice president will then start to move away from Trump and go into the lead. I just think she's really, really good at prosecuting the case against Trump.
And just a real quick follow up on that, guys, before I pass it over to Patrick. Is Kamala the only choice? Is there something that should be done, a primary or something? And I've never seen this before, and I'm not as experienced as you guys are, but I've never seen this before where a candidate will drop out, the presumptive nominee drops out, put in someone else. Is it fair that Kamala is the choice, or should it be some sort of given to the people to decide who that person is?
I've got a feeling on that, whether people agree with this or not. I think the time is running out to have some kind of a major voice from the people. It seemed like it would be a natural fit for Kamala to assume that mantle as the presumptive nominee. I think would be a real snub to her as the sitting vice president in the party to bypass her. I don't see, and again, this time frame, I think if there was the machine behind it to get her to be the nominee, then I think that's where the energy would come and the excitement would come. I don't know the mechanics, and Greg, you could talk to this. What would be the mechanics? Would the party be able to just say, we want Kamala? If Biden tomorrow says, I'm no longer running, can the Democratic Party, the national party, say, okay, we want Kamala, or does it have to go through something? How would that happen?
No, the delegates decide. So if Biden were to withdraw from the race, his delegates are released, and nobody has a right to those delegates. So it would have to be decided at the convention. But my feeling is that there are practical reasons why it almost has to be the vice president. I'm not sure legally if anyone else could get access to the Biden-Harris campaign money. I'm not sure about that.
I've heard talk about that.
But so I think there are really practical reasons why it ought to be her. And frankly, I think you could throw a dart at a board of almost any Democrat, that's holding a higher office now, and they can beat Trump. I really think that. But I think she's the very best. If you listen to her out on the trail right now, she is so good. She is so articulate in making the case against Trump. And I think that's what this election turns on. It's not an election about specific issues other than the issue of abortion and choice, and the border, and that will be the Republicans' primary talking point. But it's really going to be a referendum on Donald Trump if it's somebody other than Biden.
James, you have any more follow-up questions?
No, I'm good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Patrick, you've got some questions lined up, so go ahead, sir.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for coming on, Randy and Greg. I don't care if the rest of you are on, but I appreciate these two. So, I'm just kidding.
We appreciate you, PP.
Right? That's not going to stick. Anyways,
It is.
A couple of things, and I know that you guys kind of spoke a little bit about this already. I'm kind of the oddball out in this panel, if you will. So I just have a couple of things, and my first thing would be like, if I was a Democratic voter, and I'm not obviously right now, I think I would be pretty upset with the fact that I wasn't given an opportunity to pick the next nominee. I guess what would you guys say to a Democratic voter that wasn't given an opportunity to primary Joe Biden? Because I think that was a big deal. And I think that you said this earlier, it might have been Greg, that they were denied an opportunity to primary Joe. And I think that, like you said, you had talked about there's plenty of other Democratic candidates that might have been better at that time. So do you think they should have primaried Joe Biden? And what would your advice to be to somebody of a Democratic voter that is kind of pissed off, that feels like they are just going to do and assign whomever they want because we didn't get a chance to pick our nominee? Greg or Randy, I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll go then. Greg will correct me. Here's what I think. When you've got a sitting president of your party, to have someone go against him, challenge him, I don't think that looks good. So I don't think there was any problem personally with having Joe Biden be really the presumptive nominee of the party, even though it went through this primary process. There was really never any challengers to him that of any substance. So that was okay. But what I would say to a voter who now says, hey, you guys took away my vote by kicking him out. First of all, it's Joe Biden that's going to make that decision. No one can kick him out legally. He's going to have to make the decision if he wants to step away or not. And secondly, again, I go to the practicality. Everybody saw what happened in that debate. You can't take that away. You saw that he couldn't answer the questions. He is not the same Joe Biden as 4 years ago. And even though you might be upset that he's no longer running, the polls have shown, the polls I've seen, that 70% of the Democrats want somebody else to run. And, whether those are accurate polling or not, but I've seen some stats like that. So, what choice do you have? You don't want Trump in there. So, yeah, whoever. Greg, what do you think?
So what I think is that it was an open process in the same way that the Republican process was open. That is, Nikki Haley ran against Trump and, garnered 20 or 30% of the vote. Any Democrat could have run against Biden. Yes, the party was firmly behind Biden, but that is traditionally just the way it goes. If you're the sitting incumbent, you're going to get the support. And it's just for somebody who wants to have a future in the Democratic Party, it's kind of foolhardy for them to take on the sitting president. But there were no barriers to someone taking him on if they wanted to. It's just that no one stepped up. But I agree with you that it would have really been nice to have some alternative choices.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like as a Democratic voter, that may have rubbed me the wrong way. You know what I mean?
And it rubs me the wrong way because I think that we all knew that Biden was diminished a year ago. If you look at the clips of him through the years, from the time that he was in the Senate and vice president, and even to 2020, and George Clooney made this point today in his announcement that Biden ought to step aside. He said, this is not the same guy that I knew in 2020. He's different. He is diminished. And I think privately, everybody sort of knows that.
Right.
But see, Greg, I think the difference is somebody should have got to him before he ran and said, hey, don't do this. Don't do this. But you're absolutely right, Greg. The sitting president, if somebody else would have challenged him and the party was not behind him, what does that say about him as a sitting president? That people were not happy with him as the Democratic president. So practicality was he was going to be the nominee. But right. I wish somebody would have got to him before it got to this point and said, Joe, you've done a great job. You've got a great legacy. Please don't run again. Yeah. I wish that would have happened.
I see that, guys. And I so appreciate that. I really do. One last thing for me, then I'm going to pass it to my guys. So there's been a couple of things that I've heard. I don't know if you can see in the background, but I actually do have Fox and CNN on both of my TVs. James can vouch for that I do actually watch both. And I've heard oddly similarities recently okay, from both Fox and CNN. Now, there's been very, very, very few times where both Fox and CNN have been in somewhat of sync, okay? And so my question to you is this. Because this debate was done on Joe Biden's terms, on Joe Biden's network, with Joe Biden's rules, and of course, it was the earliest scheduled presidential debate in history, and the fact that I've seen so many switches on the CNN side of things as the anchors just seem to just flip a switch so quickly. My question to you is, do you guys believe in any kind of a conspiracy about the fact that this was a setup by the Democrats, that they put this show on to actually see if he could sink and swim? And it just felt like to me that they had a prepared strategy right away when Joe Biden failed, because I watched CNN and I watched people like Vance Joseph and other people that have done nothing but sing this man's praises for ever and ever, all of a sudden say, oh, he needs to step aside, like right away. So as a Republican, to me, that just seems something's a little off. Any truth to any of that, you guys?
I don't believe that. I think that would have been a very risky move, which it was. I do not believe that there was any kind of feeling amongst his handlers or the party that, hey, let's put him out there to hopefully show that he can fail. I just don't
throw him to the wolves. I don't think so, but I do think that I really think that their strategy was, we've got to get out there now. People have doubts. We got to get that out there now and show that he can do this. So, they take him to Camp David and they prepare him for a week, and he can't pull it off. He just can't do it. And I think that the reaction of Democrats on CNN, like I'm thinking of Van Jones.
I'm sorry. You're right. Van Jones. That's the right one. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. How quickly he said, I love Joe Biden. I worked for him.
He's got to go.
But he's got to go. I think it was a gut reaction in the moment. You can't look at that and not just say, the guy doesn't have it anymore. He really was not coherent. And especially, he could not react to all of, excuse me, Patrick, for saying so, all of Donald Trump's many, many, many lies. He couldn't do it.
Oh, you're not offending me at all. I understand. That's no problem. It's tough to offend me, guys. Trust me. I'm on this panel. It's tough to offend me. No, I appreciate that, guys. I was just curious because it seemed a little odd to me, because I had never really – I had been watching CNN, one of the side TVs, and it was just – I was like, holy cow. It just immediately, how quickly they abandoned his side right after that debate. Well, I was just curious.
It was interesting.
It was. And the cleanup, the excuses that they gave were just ridiculous.
Right.
Well, he had a cold that night.
Travel, jet lag 13 days later.
Jet lag 13 days before. He had a whole week at Camp David to rest and prepare. I mean, those excuses were absolutely asinine. They were ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We are going to give Soleil and Princeton an opportunity to chime in. Soleil, we're going to start with you, and after Soleil, then Princeton. So Soleil, please take it away.
I think I'll hop in. I think Soleil said she was good, but okay. So I'll make mine quick. I know we have other stuff we want to get to, but as far as going back to, you guys said that you feel that the vice president would be the best to take on the role for running for the Democrats. Do you feel that not having a white Christian male as the head would be a problem with the voters? And do you think that's a reason that could hold them back for going with her?
Well, I look at Barack Obama, won 2 terms, overwhelmingly the first black president, black male. I would hope, and I believe that the majority of this country is not as racist, as prejudiced as a small minority. I really believe that. And again, I think that's evidenced by what Barack Obama did. And he was so inspirational. I wish we could run presidents for 4 terms. I would have liked to see him still in there. And so I think he broke the ground there. certainly there's a core of Donald Trump's followers that would have a real problem with that. Donald Trump himself, you know what, the way he talks about females, and especially black females, he's got a problem. He has got a problem with that, and I think he's got some followers, but I do not believe the majority of the people in this country have got the same problem as Donald Trump. Greg?
Yeah, so look, Donald Trump already has the white Christian nationalist vote wrapped up. Those people are not in play. And so the people who are in play are primarily, I think, women. I mean, it's only 6 or 7% of the voters who have not made a decision. They're primarily women, you know, black women, white women, Asian women, Hispanic women. And I think that Harris is so good on the, you know, the women's health issue that she has the best chance to win that coalition over. Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I think she's probably the best. I think that the cake is already baked when it comes to those who would not vote for a woman of color. They're already with Trump. That's my impression.
True. That's a good point. I appreciate that. I believe you said you had a follow-up, Soleil.
Yeah, I do. I want to sort of respond to Randy. I mean, I kind of agree that, you know, the racist or homophobic or this or that is probably a small minority of the entire country's population. But unfortunately, it's a lot of those individuals who are in power or who are senators or Congress people or even on the state level. And so that's where, like, I have a concern there where, you know, I can't just sort of gloss over the idea that, well, it's only a few, but the few are actually pretty powerful in this situation. I'll give you a time to respond to that. But one other question is logistically, with the convention coming up in a month. So if he doesn't drop out, then it would have to be a contested convention. And that will probably bring more dysfunction to the party. So would you suggest, for me personally, I've come up with this idea that for this election, at least, I'm voting party over candidate. Like, I know Biden is flawed, but whoever they put in, or if it's even Biden, I support the agendas, right, behind the Democratic Party. So I'm going to pick party over candidate. Would you subscribe to that kind of thinking for this election?
I want Greg to answer that about the contested convention. But hey, let me respond to Soleil about what was said there. I absolutely agree that racism is not dead in this country. It is not. Listen, I've lived long enough to see. I was alive. I was born in 1952. And you look at what I've seen during my lifetime as far as civil rights and the way that we've treated people of color. I've seen that. And it takes generations to get over that. And so I'm not saying that it's gone. It is not. But what I am saying is I do believe with Barack Obama being elected as president, we made a big leap forward in getting rid of some racism. We still have work to do, as evidenced by so much of people. So like you said about people in power of crazy things. I am really upset about getting rid of these DEI programs in school and colleges. And even here in Utah, they did that. That really upsets me. And that is part of this whole racist thing. And so it's not gone away, but I do believe we've made progress. And I believe enough people in this country have got over that that a woman of color would not be a problem for them. Greg, contested convention.
Okay, and then I want to follow up on this question because I think it's a really important one. Contested convention. If Joe Biden comes out of the convention, I don't care if we're at like the Weekend at Bernie's stage. I'm voting for Joe Biden. I agree. You're going to vote for whoever is running against Trump. And but I think even a contested convention, somebody other than Biden has to come out, or I just don't think that he can win. I just don't think that he can. But look, this Heritage Foundation Project 2024 that we're going to talk about, it goes to the heart of Soleil, your question, because this is fundamentally a Christian nationalist document. And you are so right that those folks are in positions of power. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, these are not guys who hide it. These are guys who go to the Christian Nationalist Convention and say, hell yes, I'm a Christian nationalist. And they are trying to impose an ideology on the rest of America through this agenda that is very, very frightening. They claim that they're for liberal democracy, but they are actually for the opposite. They claim they're for constitutional government. They're for the opposite. They want to impose this their Christian view on the rest of the nation. And look, if you're not a Christian of their particular stripe, then you're out. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a scary document. And to put more people in power with that viewpoint, which this document intends to do, is very frightening for liberal democracy.
Yeah, perfect time to transition, Greg and Randy, into Project 2025. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on the debate, for certain. Greg, if you don't mind, if you can just give some basic ideas on what Project 2025 entails, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I'm going to look down at some notes because I'm not very good off the cuff. But first of all, this is not a policy document at all. It's not a serious policy document. Mm-hmm. It is an ideological document. It is a manifesto about the kind of government that they want to impose. Yes, there are policies in it, but they are secondary to the ideology. And I just wanted to read a couple of quotes, if I could, just to give you guys a flavor of it. They say this. By the way, everything is framed in a left or right dichotomy, a zero-sum left or right dichotomy. So it's us versus them. And so they say, ultimately, the left does not believe that all men are created equal. They think they are special, which is so ironic because these guys proclaim throughout this document that their viewpoint is special. Their view of Christian viewpoint. They certainly don't think all people have an unalienable right to pursue the good life. They think only they themselves have a right, along with a moral responsibility, to make decisions for everyone else. This is what they're claiming the left does, but it's exactly what they do in this document. They make a statement, and this is the scary part of it to me. And then I'll let Randy go on this, but let me find this quote. Oh shoot, sorry.
All right, fine.
Give me 1 second here. Oh, they say this about the Constitution. When the founder spoke of pursuit of happiness, remember life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, what they meant might be understood today as, in essence, pursuit of blessedness, which is sort of a Christian term that we all know. That is, they say, an individual must be free to live as his Creator ordained. Our Constitution grants each of us the liberty to do not what we want, but what we ought. Now that's nonsense. The Constitution does grant us the right to do what we want, to pursue happiness as defined by the individual, not as defined by some Christian ideal that is imposed. If my ideal of happiness is to lay on a flat rock all day, it is my constitutional right to lay on a flat rock all day. And it is not the right of the the Christian nationalists to tell me how I ought to live my life. And that's at the core of this thing. And the second core of this thing is this, that they want to create an imperial presidency, which moves very quickly toward an authoritarian government. They want the Justice Department to report directly to the president so that the president can direct the Justice Department to do whatever he wants them to do. No independence anymore between the two. That means Trump can go after his political rivals. His example, his lawyer's example of sending SEAL Team 6 to take out his political rivals. This is the imperial presidency that they're trying to create. It's very undemocratic and I think quite scary.
Randy, do you have anything you want to add?
Boy, I agree. I think Greg said that very eloquently. That is a scary place to be, isn't it? That they want to impose their view of Christianity upon everyone through the government. And we have so many different religions in this country and so many different cultures. See, they really are white nationalists. They really are. And when they're so immigrant phobia, they have such an immigrant phobia, they're afraid of anyone of color coming into this country. They really are. I would say that to them. They really are white nationalists. And I use that term white. Listen, we've got all kinds of cultures in this country. We've got all kinds of people coming in here. That's what makes America great, is this vast melting pot that we are protected under the Constitution. And when we try to mold everybody into one way of looking at life, that goes against the very foundation of the Constitution. So I think it's a scary, scary thing.
It is. And we're going to definitely touch on some fear as well. Soleil, what you got?
Yeah, so this is probably more of a statement, just a statement, but I found an article on CBS.com, and basically they said that the Heritage Foundation in 2015, before Donald Trump was elected, they did this before. They had a manual, sort of a mandate for leadership. And what they claim is that Trump, in his first 2 years in office, implemented 64% of the ideas that they had suggested. So I guess, if that's true, if they're not just making something up, throwing numbers in the air, then for me, that's very concerning, because in this new document, there's actually I have some numbers here that I'll mention. Things like abortion is mentioned 199 times. Things that's related to LGBT or gender is mentioned 137 times. Woke, DEI is mentioned 95 times. So those are things that are targeting minorities. And so if he was able to implement 64% of their ideas, whether knowingly or unknowingly, it's kind of frightening to think that he could do it again. So I guess that's more of a statement, but if y'all want to chime in and give your opinion on those stuff.
I'm terrified I'm terrified if Donald Trump gets reelected, what this country will be like. I think it would never be the same. And I know the Republicans use fear. Their whole thing is crime. Hey, crime. It's because of these Democrats. Immigrants. We're afraid of these immigrants coming in because they're committing the crimes. All of this is just false, but they use the fear tactic. So I don't like to use fear, but I can confess I am afraid of Donald Trump. I am afraid of what he would do to this country.
Yeah, Randy, let me, by the way, crime is at like a 20-year low right now.
Yes.
Donald Trump keeps saying that it's because of Biden that crime is up. Well, crime isn't up. And that's just statistically a fact. But let me give you a little background of the Heritage Foundation and this mandate for, Soleil, what's it called? Mandate for?
Leadership?
Yeah. Yeah. So, the Heritage Foundation came to power at the time of Reagan being elected in 1980, and they were very influential on the Reagan agenda and inside the Reagan administration. And so every election year, they've put out one of these documents since then. But what also came to rise during that period was the moral majority, which is really the predecessor of this Christian nationalist movement. Now, it has its roots going back, many, many years, back to George Wallace and even before George Wallace. It has its roots there. But the moral majority rose, and it fundamentally changed the view of what conservatism is. Conservatism used to be fundamentally about economic opportunity and, a strong military and those kinds of issues. This infusion of religion into what ought to be our secular government is a result of that period in the 80s when the moral majority came to power and the Heritage Foundation came to power. Now, Heritage used to be a very conservative think tank, but a respectable think tank with conservative ideas. But it is one more example of how the Trump movement has appropriated everything in the Republican universe, and the Republican Party is not what it once was. We used to be free traders. I say we as though I'm still one, and so maybe in my heart I am, but we're no longer free traders. We're protectionists. Everything has changed, and it is all about this America First Trump movement. And this document will be defining in how Trump goes about his business in the next term if he's elected. And it will do great, great damage to our institutions. Trump has already undermined people's confidence in our institutions, and this will just further do that.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for all of those thoughts. A lot was said right there. I am I guess I can say the devil's advocate. I can be, I guess, the representation of across the aisle. Just a couple of things in response of the things that I've written down. First of all, this document in the first section is over 900 pages long. So it says a whole bunch of stuff that it says, I guess. So trying to organize my thoughts here. Over 900 pages. Of course, there's going to be some things into it. Talks about border security, things like that. My question, though, too, is it talks about when we talk about a document like this, a document that legitimately is a product of a think tank. It's a product of a group of people that are in no way connected to anything politically. In fact, according to what Project 25 has come out and said, they say, quote, as we've been saying for the last 2 years now, Project 2025 does not speak for any candidate or any campaign. So as far as how people interpret this document, that's up for judgment. But their intention is not to create a manifesto of what will happen when and if Donald Trump retains the White House. I think that's a common misconception, at least from my standpoint. So when you look at the connections between Project 2025 and Donald Trump, both Project 2025, the conservative Heritage Foundation think tank, as well as Donald Trump saying, quote, I know nothing about Project 2025. Many of the policies mentioned in there are abysmal. I'm just curious, why is it any more important than anything that you or I or any other think tank around the world posts and publishes? And the main reason that I can think of is because it's a talking point to change the news cycle. I think many of the reasons that we're hearing about this document right now is specifically because for the last 15, 17 days, I think the Democratic Party and specifically Joe Biden has lost that news cycle. I think that they're looking for something to turn the page to. And I think that this fits that bill. So I guess when we talk about too, and Greg, I just want to mention one thing that you talked about, the independence of the executive branch and the DOJs and all of those other kind of organizations. Many people around the country, in fact, more than half of the people in this country already feel that that's already been taking place as far as weaponization of the DOJ, as far as those agencies reporting directly to the executive branch. So when you say that you have fears of that happening when Donald Trump takes over, there are many people around this country that already feel that that is happening. Right. So just a couple of things that I wanted to point out. I just feel, like I said, that this is getting the traction that it's getting, not because it's connected in any way to Donald Trump or into politics specifically. I think that it's I don't want to say a ploy, but an attempt to change the news cycle, and that's just the way I see
it. You want me to go, Randy?
Go ahead.
Please.
I've got some thoughts, but go ahead.
Well, look. We're in a political environment, in a political cycle, and you're absolutely right that the Democrats are using this document to change the subject. But when Donald Trump says, I know nothing about this document, Donald Trump is lying, as Donald Trump always does. He did not know who David Duke was either. I mean, he just doesn't tell the truth. The director of his OMB is one of the leaders of this cause. It is filled with Trump people, Trump alumni. And what the document says, and they are very clear about, is we are preparing a transition document. We are preparing a government in waiting. We are going to dismantle the administrative state, and we are going to fire all those people, and we are going to put Trump's political appointees in those places. And if you don't think that Trump is coordinating with this or Trump's people, well, I think that they are. I think that they are. So that's that point. And I think
we don't know if he's lying or not, to be honest. I mean, there's really no way to know that. He says he has nothing to do with it. The Project 25 people say they have nothing to do with it, but I guess other people know more.
We have a historical experience with him, I think.
Okay.
That's my view. But the other thing is what the Heritage Foundation's CEO is saying about it. What did he say? He said, this is America's second revolution, and it will be a bloodless revolution if the left allows it to happen. That's a direct quote. This is their view is they are taking over.
Is
And
their view Donald Trump's view? That's what I'm curious. You say they in the Heritage Foundation, and that's what I think a lot of the Democratic talking point is to merge those two, because they're not the same. And so they even said only 64% of what it was potentially implemented last time too. So it's just I see it.
That was in the first 2 years. That was just in the first 2 years. That's a lot to do.
Well, again, there's some of the things in that 900-page document I'm sure they're going to agree with, like border security.
I take your point that they are not the same. I agree with you, and I grant you that. But I think that that it is so closely tied with the Trump campaign's talking points about what they will do when they take over, that it's really, really hard to separate them. And by the way, I don't know what your view of a coup is, but I think that we're living in the middle of a coup right now. The simple definition of a coup is you try to stay in power when the voters have said otherwise. And that's what Donald Trump did leading up to January 6th, where people were killed. And now we're still living in this coup moment where he continues to lie about the outcome of the 2020 election, and where he and every one of the candidates to be vice president will not say publicly, definitively, that they will accept the results of the next election. And so we are, in fact, in a moment where these forces that are closely aligned are attempting to impose a very different imperial type government, authoritarian type government on our liberal democracy. That's my view.
And, before we go further, I just want to jump in really quick. An article published by Newsweek cites 31 contributors that have been associated with Trump in his administration. 31. It's hard for me to believe, and Patrick, to your point, no, we can't prove yes or no, but it's kind of hard for me to believe that 31 people, and I'm going to post this article on the Ear Hustling Podcast Facebook page as well, that out of these 31 people, no one is consulting with Trump. One of the pillars in this Project 2025 is recruitment. They are currently recruiting people to be a part of the Presidential Administration Academy. One of the first questions that they're asking is, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump? They're looking for Trump loyalists to be a part of this academy, to be appointed into, and I apologize, I don't know if it was Randy or Greg that pointed out that their plan is in this book, their plan is to fire a bunch of civil service employees and put in Trump people, Trump loyalists. It's hard for me to accept the fact that he doesn't know that that's what the idea is. And they're working towards this academy. It's not a hypothetical. This is what they're actually doing.
Right. Well, I could write a book that says that I'm going to, run the presidency and put everybody I want in power too. That's the point that I'm trying to make, is that this Project 2025 says a lot of things, and I haven't read the whole thing. Okay. So it says a lot of things, but my point is exactly this, is that it continues to be tied into the mainstream as tied to Donald Trump. This has, at this point, it is proven to have nothing to do with Donald Trump. He himself has come out and said it. The campaign, the Project 25 has come out and said it. I totally understand your perspectives, and I get it. The history speaks. I understand, and we can agree to disagree. But my point is it's a turn in the page of the news cycle. It's just something to talk about. It's no different. Project 2025 is no different than me publishing something from a think tank of my own. It's a conservative group of people that at this point have no official correlation to Donald Trump. That's my point.
Hey, Pat. I'm sorry, Randy.
Go ahead.
I need to respond to Pat. Number one, this isn't a new document that just emerged 2 weeks ago, after the debate. This has been circulating. It was talked about before. That's why when we had our meeting last week, I was shocked that, because you say you watch CNN and other, and you didn't know
on right
anything
now.
about it. Well, no, I get it, but
Right there.
I mean, that's where I heard about it from months ago, if not even a year ago. So, like, just I wanted to clarify that it may be partly elevated because of the debate, but this has been something that's been talked about for some time. My last point is you're saying that there's a disconnect between Trump and the Heritage Foundation, and first of all, so let's look at a few items. Abortion, they're aligned. They want a national ban on abortion. They're aligned on that. He instituted.
They probably do align with many of the things in there. You're probably right. But that
LGBT people, that affects me. Taking away healthcare, things like that. He banned transgender people from being in the military. Things like that. They're aligned on that. So some of the big things, they are aligned on, and that's going to affect everybody on this call, except for maybe you, and I don't know, Randy and
Greg. I understand the fear,
but it benefits white heterosexual men more than it does anybody else.
I understand that there is a general fear of Donald Trump, and I try my best on a regular basis to try to relate and understand that. I can't do that because I don't have that same fear. But the only thing that I'm trying to point out is that both parties have said they have nothing to do with each other at this point. So go ahead, Randy. I know you wanted to say something.
No, yeah. I just want to respond about this fear of Donald Trump. First of all, here's one of the lies that he's caught in. He says, I know nothing about Project 2025. But there are some terrible things in there I don't agree with. Well, how can you not know anything about it, but say you don't agree with it? And I would like to know exactly. And he's never said what he doesn't agree with in there. Let's hear from his own lips. He won't say that. The second point is the fear of Donald Trump. What I don't understand, Patrick, and this, I've got conservative friends. I do not understand this. How can anybody who loves this country and saw what Donald Trump did on January 6th, say that was not a coup, that he was not attempting to inhibit and prohibit Congress from certifying an election that was fair. He went to 60 court battles about this unfairness. He lost every single one. There is no proof anywhere that this election was illegitimate, that there was fraud. And yet, how can I have to ask this question, how can anyone support Donald Trump when he says that election was stolen? That election was stolen. There's no proof of that. And I'm thinking, are people just nuts? Are they crazy? The people of this country elected Joe Biden, and Donald Trump would not accept it. That is the most un-American thing that's happened. And then what Soleil was saying, that he implemented some of the things that we've been talking about in this philosophy from Project 2025 in this first term. The reason he did not do more, the only reason, was there were guardrails of people who loved this country and who respected the institutions and the Constitution, who were in his administration, and said, Donald Trump, you cannot do this. Now, if he's elected again, those people will no longer be there because he will put his own sycophants in there, and only those people who are going to bow down and lick his boots, and they do not care about the tradition of the legitimacy of the Constitution of the United States and about all of what we've got in place. And that's what scares me. That's what scares me. That's why this country is so divided. The fear, I saw, you know what? I saw fear of people when Barack Obama was elected. And those were old white men and some white women who were so afraid of a black man being president of the United States. There was a real fear there. And Donald Trump, I despise the man. I despise him. Look what he did to Barack Obama. He led the birther movement. And the only reason he said that Barack Obama wasn't born in this country is because Barack Obama was black, and we can't have a black man as president of the United States. That very thing right there, I can't imagine how anybody of any moral sense can support Donald Trump. That's how impassioned I am, Patrick. So I understand. I don't understand. I do not understand. Nikki Haley would have won this election. Why did the Republican Party nominate Donald Trump?
Because that's what 78 million people voted for.
I guess, and I don't get it.
That's what I would say. I mean, listen, I appreciate your opinion, Randy. I really do, and it's with all due respect. It really is. But that is exactly what I feel Democratic talking points do. No way were we talking about the election of 2020. Okay, we're spinning now the topic in order to make a point. So I respectfully disagree. I appreciate your perspective, but again, when we're talking about Project 2025 right here, the facts are what they are. The people are saying they have nothing to do with each other. They have nothing to do with each other. That's just the way that it works right now.
And Joe Biden said he's healthy to run the country for the next 4 years.
That's right. There you go. There's no way to tell if we're lying. You're 100% right. You're 100%
So
right.
before we continue on, I know Eric has something. Eric, I want to get you, but there's a video that I really want to play. Patrick is the person on this panel that he needs proof on everything, and I respect that. I truly do. I want to play a clip. Greg actually made references from Kevin Roberts from the Heritage Foundation. So, Patrick, and after I play this, Patrick, I really want to hear what you have to say on this. So here we go.
I'm paraphrasing. Here it is.
Let me speak about the radical left. You and I have both been parts of faculties and faculty senates and understand that the left has taken over our institutions. The reason that they are apoplectic right now, the reason that so many anchors on MSNBC, for example, are losing their minds daily is because our side is winning. And so I come full circle in this response and just want to encourage you with some substance that we are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
I don't really know how that can't be scary. You know, if the left allows it, it will be bloodless if we allow it. So what does that mean that the left has to do to allow it? Just let whatever happens. Let this 900-page document happen and not fight back? What does that exactly mean? That's a scary form of rhetoric, in my opinion.
Right.
This is what Greg was speaking on earlier. So yeah, Patrick, I would love to hear what you have to say. Greg spoke on this earlier.
Right now, that 900-page document has no power. It means nothing. It's from a think tank. It has no official connection to any political party. It has no more power than me writing that column. That's what I would say to that. I mean, it's no official connection.
I've got something to say, and I hate to interrupt, but how can you not take that seriously after January 6th?
I have different feelings on January 6th, and I think that that's a different show. But again, it's a spin. We're not talking about January 6th here.
We're not, but it's relevant though, because
if you're looking for my opinion on January 6th, I don't think Donald Trump did what many of you claim that he did. I don't think that he incited that riot. No, I don't.
This is what's unfortunate, and this is just fact. This is just totally fact. To Soleil's point, where we are right now is, I'm not going to include Greg and Randy in this statement here, but right now, if this type of thing, the Second American Revolution happens, right now, Eric, Princeton, Soleil, and I have something to worry about. Period. We have something to worry about. Just the way. And
that's what I'm trying to understand.
Hang on a second. Just by the way we look. Patrick, you can walk up down the street that you live on right now in the middle of the Second American Revolution and have no consequence at all. But just because the way the four of us look, we got to answer questions. We have to answer to that. That, my friend, is what's called white privilege. That's
unfortunate. That's not something that I'm a part of or subscribe to.
It's very unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, but it's fact. And
Right.
that's
But
what
it's
our
not something
truth
that I
is.
subscribe to.
It
Not
doesn't
something that I
matter.
subscribe
It doesn't matter because you have the
Well, I don't like being
ability.
put in buckets. I don't like being put in buckets
You're a
of things
white
that I
man.
don't
You can't
subscribe
do
to.
nothing about that. I'm a black
come
man.
on,
I can't do
man.
nothing about that.
You can't say because I'm a white man that I subscribe to white privilege.
I didn't
That's
say
not
that.
fair.
I didn't say that. I did not say that. Rewind the tape and play it back. I didn't say that. What I said was you have no control over that. Just like we don't have control over the skin we wear.
Sure.
The point is we have to be worried about this. I have a son that's sitting on this panel right now that goes to work at nighttime every single night, right? What happens to him when he leaves this house? I can do the best I can to protect my household while we're in the house, but when we go outside, I have no control over that. You don't have to worry about that.
Well, I do. I have the same fears when my daughter goes out of the building too, just in a different way. I know what you're pointing. I know what you're saying.
Okay.
I know what you're
Okay.
saying, and I acknowledge what you're saying. I do. That there are different questions asked to people of color, and that I get that. But I don't act like I'm as a parent too, and don't have the same concerns for my children as you do.
You don't.
I do.
You don't. You have concerns, but you don't have the same concerns.
That's pretty rough, man.
It's fact.
We can
though.
agree to
It is
disagree.
rough. You're right. It is rough, but it's true. It's true. Kelsey,
I have
can
as
go
many
outside with
concerns about my daughter as you have about your son, my friend.
No, it's not the same. It's not the same.
It doesn't have to be. Doesn't have to be.
And as a white man, Chris Wall agrees that it's not the same. What
But
happened
again,
when you was
it's not the same.
What happened
You're
when we was
right.
in Nashville and we got pulled over? My hands immediately went up. We were just cool, calm, collected. You could say whatever you want to that white officer. I couldn't. I had to be quiet.
That's a feeling I don't
Yes.
understand. I get it.
But it's real.
And
But
that's
it's
why,
real.
and that's why I hate to
That's
say
fine,
it
but
so
I
bluntly.
don't subscribe to it. I'm not a part of
That's why I
it.
hate to be so blunt when I say this, Patrick. That's why you need to stand back and listen to the people who can and take what we're saying to be fact, because that's our truth.
And when I speak up, and I feel like when I speak up, it's only in the defense of myself. I don't subscribe to that way of thought, and I don't like being put into a single white male, white supremacist ideological. I just don't like that. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist.
We're not
I'm not saying that it doesn't
you are,
exist. I'm
We're
not
not
saying that it
saying
doesn't
you
exist. I just don't like being put in that box. That's all.
We're
So
not saying
I have a question
you are
for-
that. Hold
Go
up,
ahead,
Prince,
Prince.
real quick. Hold up, Prince. We're not saying you're white supremacist. We're saying you do have privilege, whether you subscribe to it or not. You have privileges that we don't.
I'm sorry. I mean,
and-
what am I supposed to say to that? I don't.
You're not supposed to say anything.
You're not. Yeah.
I don't
you
know.
may not-
I'm being honest, guys. I don't know what I'm supposed to say because I'm white. I'm privileged. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right.
I can't be anything
I'm
else.
sorry, Prince. Go ahead.
No problem. So I wanted to
Can't be
bring it
anything
back
else.
to the Project 25, and I don't know if Greg or Randy, how much of it you guys have got into. I guess, have you seen any like benefits to this? Have they raised any good points in Project 25? Like, are there things?
Good
I feel
question.
like whenever we go through, like whenever we talk about Trump, whenever we talk about Project 25, I feel like we're talking about with the election lately, everything always goes back to, it always goes to race. It always goes to like the LGBT community. And I know that's because that's a lot of those talking points, and that's a lot of the communities that are attacked by it. But have you seen anything that's actually a positive in the Project 25 manifesto, if you will?
Yes. Go ahead, Randy.
I have not read the whole 900 pages. I've not read the whole 900 pages.
Mm-hmm.
From the talking points that I've seen, I have not seen any real good things in there that I can see. But Patrick, I have to go back to one thing about Donald Trump. I just, the racism that comes out of his mouth when he stood on the debate stage and told the Proud Boys to stand by and stand back. Go look up who are the Proud Boys. Who are the Proud Boys? Go look and see what they represent, what they believe. He said that. I heard it with my own ears. And then in Charlottesville, when they had those
Both
white
people on both
supremacists
sides. Yeah, I know what
marching
you're going to say.
Oh yeah, the both sides. I heard that with
would've
I
said.
saw that. I heard it with my own. I saw with my own eyes. I heard him say it. There are fine people on both sides. That is just BS if you're not a white supremacist. You can't have it both ways. He's courting the white supremacist. That is now I'm not going to say here that all Republicans are white supremacists. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is the white supremacists that there are in this country, they are a minority, but they find a home in the party of Donald Trump. That's the only place they have a home. It's in the party of Donald Trump.
So can I go back to Prince's question?
Yeah.
Are there some good things in the document? So I have dug into it. Like I read a big chunk of it today. And I am philosophically a conservative. I'm no longer a Republican, but I am philosophically a conservative. And the conservative movement allowed Donald Trump to take over what was my party, the party of Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, who I worked for. And so there are things in that document that feel and sound right to me as a conservative. For example, we do have a big bloated bureaucracy. We do have an administrative state where Congress has exported many of their responsibilities to the bureaucratic state. And it has resulted in bureaucrats making decisions that they ought not be empowered to make. I buy into a lot of that stuff. The philosophical stuff that is sort of policy directed, I buy into a lot of it. But they have bastardized what it means to be a liberal democracy, what it means to be a secular democracy where everyone is created equal by God and under God. They are saying no. Only people who believe the way we believe are created equal under God. And that's what's happened, is they've gone too far. And it is let me give you this example from a friend of mine who is a privileged white guy with privileged white kids who went to privileged schools. And he is one of my best friends, but he is blissfully unaware of his privilege. And when his kids were graduating from college, he said to me, you know, my kids don't stand a chance because now all the corporations, all they want to do is recruit minorities. And I'm thinking about this guy who has had his kids go to elite colleges and were college athletes who have all the privilege in the world, including a rich dad who was able to pay for their education, to say, my kids don't stand a chance. And that bubble is everywhere in predominantly white communities.
Okay, I appreciate both of your guys' answers on that. Especially appreciate where you came from of some of the opportunities that we have and that were listed in the Project 2025. I feel like so much of the conversation always comes down to don't vote for Trump because he's a racist, or vote for Biden because you don't want to vote for Trump, that I feel like we hardly ever get to hear both points or to hear reasons why I actually should vote for either side outside of just the race reasons. So I appreciate you coming with all of that.
Hey, can I say one more thing about that?
Oh, of course.
I feel like I've been taking a lot of time. But, you know, our political system is fundamentally broke. The two-party system
I've been saying that for a long time.
It's done us a real disservice because it is a zero-sum kind of thing. We don't get into policy discussions. It's just accusations back and forth. And I saw this interview with Ronald Reagan's daughter, Patty Davis, who talked about how she and her father her father and Tip O'Neill, who was the Speaker of the House at that time. After they would argue about a policy issue, they would have a drink of scotch together. Two old Irish guys, and it was a different time. That's when I came up in Washington. It was a different time. You could talk about policy issues outside of the context of the campaigns, outside the political context. And that is broken. Our system is broken. And I think somehow, some way, we've got to get away from this two-party system, I think. There's nothing sacred or constitutional about political parties.
Yeah,
they are just constructs.
Do you have any thoughts on Robert Kennedy then? Just out of curiosity, because we talked about the two-party system and how he is kind of making waves. And I'm just kind of curious if you guys had any thoughts on his candidacy.
As a practical matter, he can't get any traction. Even if he makes waves, he can't get on enough ballots to make a dent. And so he could be a spoiler if he got a few electoral votes. But
just a spoiler for the Democratic Party, though. It would be a spoiler, I would think, because you would think that any kind of a vote for Robert Kennedy would be coming from a Democratic side, I would imagine, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
I think a lot of his ideals line up with Trump voters. I think it could come equally from both sides. I don't know where it would come from.
Well,
the suspicion of government, that suspicion of government, of the establishment, that lines up more with the Republican side, I think.
Yeah, I've seen some talking points on that, and there is a debate on whether he would pull more votes from the Democrats or the Republicans. And a lot of his stuff is conspiracy theory. And they're thinking, some of the things I've seen, that he would actually take more from Donald Trump than he would from Joe Biden, even though he's claiming he's a Democrat. He in my opinion, he says some crazy stuff. But
I haven't really followed him very much, to be honest. So I don't really know. I was just curious on third-party candidacy, if the implement or because I've heard both networks talk about that, not the legitimacy of the opportunity that he has to win, but the legitimacy that he has to play spoiler.
Spoiler, yes. Man, Patrick, I wish we lived closer by. I'd like to go to lunch with you. We could have a real discussion.
Hey, man, listen,
I love it. And it's good to disagree, but
I appreciate that, man. Listen, I've said this from the beginning. I appreciate my colleagues, my friends on this panel for allowing me to come here, and we're still going to play Madden at the end of this. So, and that's the most important thing. Is we can disagree wholeheartedly, but it is only one thing. And I think that the problem is with many people in this country is that they can't disagree about politics. I can't have friends that disagree with me on politics. And I think that's a bunch of garbage. I think that it's no different than disliking broccoli or anything else. It's one thing in the mass of a whole bunch of things that I have in common with these people on this panel. And I don't allow my political views or our political views to stand in the way of the friendships that I've built on this panel. So I appreciate you saying that, Randy. Thank you.
I really mean that. And I really think that every one of us can talk about policy, and we can have disagreements and debates about policy, tax policy, immigration policy, stuff like that. But they're really feelings. These innate feelings come out when you talk about Donald Trump.
It's true. You elicit emotion.
Because of the man he is, the immoral or the amoral man that he is, his constant lies, what he's done. January 6th, I know you have a disagreement there, but I think that was the most horrific thing that should have disqualified him from ever running for office again. That was a coup. In my mind, that was a coup. So when you've got, I could even vote for a different Republican than Donald Trump. Like I say, Nikki Haley, if Nikki Haley was the Republican nominee, this country would have a whole different talking about where we're going about. But Donald Trump is, in my opinion, he's an evil man.
He's polarizing. I'll give you that. He's polarizing. There's nobody that feels about Donald Trump. I mean, I guess that's I can give you that one for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're going to wrap this up. I think we've had some awesome conversation. First of all, Randy, Greg, I want to thank and appreciate you guys for coming along and joining this panel. We really have appreciated your guys' perspective. And again, to reiterate that everything that is said here is said with respect. And we appreciate that. So here's to you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I don't know if you guys want to stick around for this last ridiculous segment or not, but you're welcome to do so. It's going to be quick.
I've got to run, but thank you.
Okay. Well,
I have to also bail out.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Randy. Chat again.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Let's download after the election.
There you go.
Yes, get together.
Let's meet again. Have healthy conversations, because that's what's important. That's what needs to happen. That's what more of our politicians need to do. Have healthy conversations. Lock them in a room, man. Don't let them out until they come out with some resolution. That's what.
I love
Thanks,
that,
guys.
Patrick. I love that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you.
All right. We made it. We're here. We're alive. Everybody still likes everybody, a little bit less than before, but that's all right.
I'm still cool with you, PP.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. That was fun. I mean, well, maybe fun wasn't the word to use. It was important. I think it's an important conversation to continue to have. And so I'm going to switch from the seriousness that was to the stupidity that is, if you will, and kind of close the show with a spitballing segment that I think that we're debuting this. I don't think we've ever done this on this show before, James. Is that correct?
That is correct. But before you do that, so that could be the very last word they hear.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. Next week, nepotism, season 3, episode 9. Nepotism is what we're going to talk about. It's going to be a very interesting show, and more to come on that. So it's going to be the same places: Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And make sure to follow us, like us, love us, subscribe to us, all of that good fun stuff.
How do you think I got on this panel?
Don't follow us in person though, because that's creepy.
That's creepy.
But okay, we're gonna wash our hands of the seriousness and turn into, what is this? Nobody wants to see your face. Okay, thank you.
I thought it was you.
Can you put my face front and center here for my segment?
I was trying. No, I can't do that.
Even the camera doesn't.
There you go. See, everybody wants to see this face a little bit more. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode, or first segment, I should say, of Spitballing. All right, Spitballing is a segment that we have come up with that is just an opportunity for one of our ridiculous hosts to rant and rave about something ridiculous that's on their mind about anything. So here's kind of what I'd like to do, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to open up the Spitballing segment with ranting and raving about roundabouts. By a show, can I see the panel? Can I see the panel? Can I see the panel on the side? Roundabouts. I want to talk about roundabouts. How many of you guys know how to appropriately use a roundabout? Just raise your hand. Don't say anything. Just raise your hand if you think you know how to use a roundabout.
I do know how to drive.
No, you don't. You're lying, because nobody in their right mind knows how to use a friggin' roundabout, especially in the Central Florida Villages area, okay? There's a reason that you have to be in the left lane. If you're going to go onto the third exit around a roundabout, you need to be in the left lane. You can't be in the right lane and make a left-hand turn, or what equates to a left-hand turn, when you go all the way around a roundabout. Listen, people, learn how to drive in a roundabout. If you're in the left-hand lane, you can go straight or you can go left. You can't go right if you're in the left-hand lane. If you're in the right-hand lane, you can go to the right or you can go straight. You can't go to the left. All right? Learn how to drive in roundabouts. That's it. Mic drop. Boom. Done.
I mean, your community is like 80 years old. Everybody's 80.
I'm preaching to the choir, dude. Learn how to do roundabouts. Circle.
They're 80.
God.
They don't care. They've given up.
God.
They can't do that,
You're
but they can be president.
Listen, it's so simple. If you're making a left-hand turn, you're in the left lane. If you're using the third exit on a roundabout, you still need to be in the left lane. You can't be in the right-hand lane and expect to go all the way around the circle and make an exit on the third exit. It doesn't work. All right, I'm done. That's what I got worked up most about. Freaking roundabouts. That, ladies and gentlemen, is spitball. Have a good week, everybody. Are we done?
Yeah, we are done. Have a good night, all.
Take
See
it
ya.
easy.
Bye.